can't believe it, if I'm honest, when I look back. I never had any design or expectation of what this would be.
Money Saving Expert has become even more important.
We are in a cost of living crisis. It's now indispensable.
There's been a savings revolution over the last decade. When I started out, personal finance journalism was basically about investments, and if you did mortgages, it was like, ooh, going off kilter a bit, aren't you, talking mortgages? I mean, never mind energy bills or DVD players or shopping or anything like that. Spreadsheet-based data journalism, before we had that term, if you like, into financial products, didn't exist. The real moment was coming up with the discipline of money saving. It happened when I was working on a television channel called Simply Money. They'd employed a group of 5 reporters, and I was the only one who knew my ISA from my elbow. Credit cards are nice, simple, and flat. I started there, I was called the business correspondent, and then I turned it into money saving, and the title became Money Saving Expert. My name is Austere Powers, Special Tax Agent. A webcam. Cute little fella, isn't it? And I suggested, we really should do something with this. We could really make... And they were like, we're too busy. So I would send what was jokingly called Martin's Money Tips to about 50 friends. And then I'd go to parties, and I kept meeting people who I did not send my email to who were using my money tips. And I thought, I'm onto something.
I googled money saving and came across a website with a man in a black polo neck jumper on it.
And then I signed up for the weekly email, and I was like, I really like what he's talking about.
It was full of useful tips. Shopping discounts, bank accounts. You could save money, but you could also make a little bit of money too, if you followed Martin's instructions.
It was February 2003 when I decided, actually, I'm going to try and make something a little bit more serious out of this, and a proper usable website with a forum and functions. There was a guy in Uzbekistan who offered to do it for 80 quid, and that, if I'm honest, was my only ever capital outlay on the site. Soon we were on 10,000, then we're on 30,000. I'm emailing 30,000 people a week. Then we're on 100,000, and it was at 30,000. That was the point when okay, this is real.
For the first 6 months, I believe, we worked at our respective spare bedrooms. After about 6 months or so, he felt this is strong enough, we're doing well enough to be a proper company and get a proper office. So one of my early tasks was to go and find a place.
When I first joined, we were in a basement in Shepherd's Bush. We were visited by rats and mice occasionally.
We were in this building called the Shepherd's Building. The top floor was Endemol, which is a big TV studio, Big Brother.
And we would often spot kind of Z-list celebrities. I used to have a little crush on Dermot O'Leary, and he would sometimes come into the office, and Martin would quickly email me to say that he was in the bar.
The most petrifying thing in those early days was pressing send on the weekly email. Because the weekly email was just, it was so dominant of everything we did.
We would send that email on a Wednesday lunchtime, and then Martin would make this big whoop whoop noise when we hit the email send button.
Woo, woo, sending, woo, woo. I don't do that anymore, but that was how it used to work in the early days. And once we'd press send, then we'd go to this all-you-can-eat Chinese buffet. They were all money savers. They loved it. It was all you could eat. We could have what we want, although you had to pay for tap water, which was a big, big issue.
We kept expanding, the site kept growing. We had to move offices because we kept growing.
We were growing so fast at one stage, we ran out of meeting rooms. I remember my boss having a meeting with him in his car because we literally had no space to actually have a meeting.
We must have moved office 6 or 7 times. We'd get a bit bigger, and then we'd move to a bigger and bigger and bigger office. And the final office there probably held about 40, 45 people.
The thing about Martin that's really unusual is he never blags it. On the very first show on Radio 2, which was back in the early 2000s, we started talking about, I think it was credit card interest rates. And he had all the interest rates of all the credit cards. I thought, there's just something wrong with this guy.
when Martin went on the Jeremy Vine show. Jeremy had a very big following. Those days were enough to crash the site nearly every single time. Martin tried to keep his cool. He used to get a little bit upset when the site would crash.
I didn't really understand servers. I was told I had an unlimited server. That was the package I signed up for. So the first thing I had to do was get someone who could deal with that.
What we're going to do, right? There's only so many things that we could do. It was firefighting at best.
And I suddenly had this sense of, wow, there are a lot of people out there. People really, really wanted the advice.
MSE is known for campaigning. I think if you asked people on the street, I suspect the likes of PPI and bank charges will be the things that people talk about the most.
People were being stung with £30 a time fees for going beyond their overdraft limit without any warning. And this was a deliberate and constructed manipulation by the banking sector.
But I fought the Lloyds and the Lloyds lost though.
Martin got approached by a band who wanted to help him promote the bank charges campaign, and he did a song with them.
Open up Mozilla and go to moneysavingexpert.com.
Oh, I thought the Lloyds and the Lloyds lost. They even paid the interest and the bank costs.
I fought the Lloyds, but I could have had Barclays, and I've noticed.
We tried to get it into the kind of top 40. We were about to make it big time, and they changed the rules at the last minute.
We got people £1 billion back. And in the end, everything has changed and those bank charges don't exist.
Come on, you bankers, give us our cash.
It got to number 25, but it should have been number 1.
'Cause I fought the Lloyds and the Lloyds lost.
The forum grew very quickly and very rapidly, and it was early social media. It was a place people could interact and talk, and it quickly became a powerhouse that I hadn't been expecting it to be and got very big. Probably 2 or 3 years later, when there was all these different web awards, Money Saving Expert would be the biggest site in consumer finance within just a couple of years, and the second biggest site was the Money Saving Expert forum.
The forum was also an incredible source of information for the general public. Often it'd be the first point that, let's say a company had treated someone very badly. Someone on the forum would announce it, would warn everyone. And of course, we might see it, do a story on it to amplify that message. And you know what? Some great stories out the forum as well. I think there were a few marriages off the forum. I don't think there's many personal finance outlets that can say that.
The site felt really homely because it was a community of people that were there for the same reason. Asking questions, helping each other.
In 2011, I went in to see Martin and he explained to me that he was in conversations with Money Supermarket and they were looking at acquiring Money Saving Expert.
I needed to have some other people in control of all the back-end stuff that I couldn't cope with. Selling worked, but not without the editorial code, which took a year of negotiation to get it right and is still legally part of the site, which in a nutshell says we won't data mine and we will always act in the user's interest ahead of our own financial interests. And I hope people who use the site now know in exactly the same way as it did then, they can trust it, it still fights their corner, and it still puts their interests ahead of any of our own.
One of the biggest challenges we faced during my time at MSE is the impact of the COVID and the pandemic. And then in the past year or so, the cost of living crisis has come along. And again, we are the place that users come to if they want to really understand what's happening with energy costs or interest rate rise. And if along the way that we can give them the extra bits of information to sort of, keep their bills down, that's again something that MSE will always try and do.
I mean, moneysavingexpert.com was set up so that all the articles that I'd written had an outlet, and I hoped it would promote my broadcast career, because that's what I had in my head I was. I mean, the fact that it is now, I think, probably a national institution, seen and ranked along the side of Which and Citizens Advice, called into every major meeting about consumer issues that go on in the country. I'm incredibly proud of what it's become. It's a very powerful organisation, cutting your bills, fighting your corner.
Happy birthday, MSE, 20 years old. Oh my goodness, you're good for 40, I reckon.
Happy birthday, MSE.
Happy birthday to my big baby, MSE.